Welcome to our show. I'm Lana Kay, and today we have one of my all-time favorite guests back with us, that is. He's a professional speaker, lecturer, educator, and author of a great book, Grief Behind Bars. Let's welcome back Dan Newman to the show. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Nice to be back. It's been a long time.
It has, and it's so good that you drove over from Cincinnati to be with us today. So Dan will be addressing addiction and compulsions. Now, we know a lot about alcohol and drugs, but there are other addictions that you may not even have realized are addictions or compulsions. So we won't be doing, we'll do as many as we can. Get through with our time slot. So Dan, the first one that I would like, well, first of all, I would like to say that addictions are a disease.
Yes, they have been medically proven as a disease, but the one thing I like to say to get started is I want people to understand I'm retired. I am not a licensed counselor or therapist, so this is strictly based on my 30 years experience as a senior health educator and what I've learned on the internet and researching it. But addiction now is classified as a disease, and there's several new addictions they're looking at, like gambling. Last time I was on the show, we talked about that. But the newest addiction now is cell phone addiction and technology addiction.
And great, because that's the first one that I wanted to bring up. And you may not realize it, you people that are fanatical about your cell phone, but it could be a problem. So tell us, okay, first of all, let me just tell you something strange. I went out the other night with my girlfriends. I arrived first. No tables. They gave me the handheld thing, that beeps, and I go to the bar area. Well, I was just shocked because years back I went to, like we all did, we went to bars. When I go and sit down to wait for our table and wait for them, nobody's talking.
No.
I mean, nobody's talking. The bartender's not talking. It used to be across, hey, great to see you, Dan. What can I get him a beer? It was all this chatter and people next to each other,
Exactly.
Everybody's talking. Did you see that game? It is absolutely silent. Even the bartender, after he served drinks, he's now not talking. And so what's going on?
Well, I got a little note here. Technology addiction expert Dr. David Greenfield refers to smartphones as the world's smallest slot machine.
Okay, so we know that slot machines can become addictive. So what are they doing on there that is so important? Are they texting? Are they looking for the latest news?
All the above.
Checking their email?
It's all the above. It's like a slot machine. They're texting, they're tweeting, whatever they're doing with their computers or whatever, they put out trying to find an answer. Do it that way, just like with a slot machine. You want to hit the big win.
Okay.
Texting, tweeting, all this stuff on the technology now is when you get a response, there's a dopamine rush.
Okay.
Somebody contacted me. So there's the dopamine rush like you would get from drugs, like you would get from alcohol, like you would get from overeating, all of the above. So that's where it's clinically termed as a dopamine rush, which causes the addiction. Some of us, myself, when I go to bed, I shut off my cell phone.
Right.
I don't want to be bothered. But there are people that sleep with their cell phones.
To not miss anything.
Not to miss anything. So if you send out a text, then the anxiety hits, you're waiting, you get a response, you get a dopamine rush, so that, I'll just do one text, all of a sudden turns into 30 minutes of mind-numbing technology.
Okay, so it's we might use that in an inappropriate situation. We've seen that before, where it's not really appropriate to do that, but they do it anyway. It can have an adverse effect on your relationships because you're no longer interacting on a personal level. It's all of this technology level.
Right, and it's just like you said. The last time I went out to a bar, I walked in and everybody was doing this, texting, tweeting. You see it at restaurants, families where the kids have their little iPods and the parents are on it. Nobody communicates.
Well, yeah, even families are doing it. Here's the dinner and they're all on it. Okay, now, so if you would get separated, I don't have this. I've had addiction. Thank God I don't have this one. But if you got separated from your phone for some reason, would you start to feel like any other anxious,
They
maybe
have proven that
sweating?
people separated from their phones or their computers can have a full-on anxiety attack. You know, it's like, oh my God, you know, I'm
I
totally
have to have
disconnected.
that.
I gotta have it. I gotta
I
have it.
have
I
to
gotta
have
have it.
that. Very strange. Let's go to compulsive hoarding.
Okay.
Okay? A persistent difficulty in discarding or parting with possessions because there's some kind of preconceived idea that we need them. We need these to feel okay. Are we barricading? We see those shows, Dan. What's happening, Dan?
A lot of times with hoarders, it starts off like any addiction, innocent enough. You found something in the trash. I'm going to take it home, fix it up, make something out of it. And I love doing that now that I'm retired. You know, taking stuff and fixing it and reusing it. But when it comes to a point of I can't let go.
Okay, that's where
you start having the hoarding problems. People look at, unfortunately, they look at people with a hoarding issue as being lazy, being dirty, being you know, whatever. But they don't understand. You send somebody in and clean out that house, it's like losing your cell phone.
They would go into a terrible maybe depression or gosh, I don't know.
Because they feel safe with all that stuff around them. They feel, you know, this is mine. When we look at animal hoarding, I mean, 100 cats, you know, cats dying in the house and all this kind of stuff, but they still have that compulsion that, well, maybe I lost that cat, but I found 3 more.
Right.
So I'm saving these 3.
Okay.
So it gives them a sense of purpose.
Okay.
It gives them a sense of need. I'm filling my need. When you start taking this stuff away, I don't know who I am. I'm scared. I'm lost. And the hoarding becomes worse.
Okay, because I do understand collections, okay, and they can get out of control. But then, Dan, we've seen on the nationwide shows, you know, bottle caps. What has that done? Has that just progressed from maybe I started out with a collection, now I'm collecting everything.
Anything and everything.
And I can't let go of anything.
Right.
And that's when we see the big trucks and the dumpster pull up. Or, you know, the family is crying.
Because we've all had collections. You know, our families had collections. We all have collections.
Right.
But when it gets to the point where you have a space the size of this table to sleep in because there's no other room, everything there, that's where it becomes very compulsive. They're, you know, if they do go out, they go to the grocery store, they're walking home, they see some trinket or something in the trash can.
They've got to do that.
I got to have it. I got to rescue this. They're always an attempt of rescuing and saving something.
Very interesting. And it's very interesting to know that, you know, you're not lazy. It is very rough on the family members, especially if children are living there and they can't have friends over. So this is a very destructive
it's like any
compulsion.
Addiction.
Yeah, all of them become.
Right. Drug addiction, you lose your children. Alcoholism, you lose your addiction. Hoarding, I mean, you lose your children.
Absolutely.
Hoarding, you lose your family, you lose your children. And when that happens, they go deeper into the compulsion.
Yeah, because now that's all I've got to depend on.
That's all I have.
Relationship addiction, love addiction. And this is tricky because Dan, I mean, love is a connection. And so, but when the loving someone becomes that you can't do without them, or you're obsessing and doing inappropriate things to get near them, or you can't let go of them, and it is appropriate too, but you can't let go.
Right.
Okay, so what's happening? How does this cross over? And maybe it started as love.
It could have started as love. I mean,
maybe not.
We've all heard about, you know, kidnapped victims that fall in love with their kidnappers, you know, that type of thing.
Yes.
And it's how the mind is manipulated.
Okay.
That, you know, it's, well, I love them. I mean, we've all watched Cops, you know.
Right.
Call the cops show up, go to arrest him, don't arrest him, I love him.
I love him, he didn't hurt me, and they're bleeding profusely.
Right. But we don't look at the abuse involved with a lot of this, where the individual was told, you're ugly, you're fat, you're dumb, nobody wants you, you're lucky to have me. So all of this
Beat down
to the point that when that person is gone, they have to get them back so they can feel that they are somebody.
Just like with the stuff, with the hoarding,
With
just
the hoarding,
like with
drugs, anything else.
We've got to
I
feel
gotta have
okay.
that back.
I've got to. Oh wow.
You know, and when we
But
look
with a person, Dan, that's even harder to conquer because
yeah.
they may not want to be there anymore.
Well,
so now what are you going to do?
That's when they turn into stalkers.
Stalkers and maybe murder.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
just depending how far do you take that.
How far it goes, because when we look at the psychological aspect of abuse and how these people are beat down to believe they are absolutely nothing without the other person.
Right.
When that person finds somebody else to abuse and drops this one, then they may, not in all cases, trust me, this is all generalization we're talking about, but when they're dropped and they found somebody else, then they could become a stalker. And that's when they become a dangerous stalker because, well, why are you with them and not me? You said that I was lucky to have you. Why did you drop me? So it becomes a very dangerous psychological game.
Okay, now does any of this, with this one, come back to childhood? I was not loved enough. Now somebody is, I think, loving me. They're beating me down. That happened in childhood. I mean, where does the roots of that start? Healthy people know they're abusing me. Mm-hmm. Where does that begin that you don't understand, or is it just the cycle of?
It's both. You know,
both?
It happened as childhood, because I know when I was being raised, my father, who was a severe alcoholic, you know, I was told I wasn't worth the air that I breathed.
Yeah.
I would never be anything. I would never be anybody. You know, that continuous put down. But fortunately, I got away from that, and when I went into the military, learned who I was, mm-hmm. and that was all wrong. Mm-hmm. Some people aren't lucky enough to be able to get away from it, mm-hmm. or they carry it with them from relationship to relationship to relationship.
Mm-hmm. Or they leave home, that abusive home, with first guy abusive, mm-hmm. and then we just keep going. You know, very, very, very bad, and very, I think too, some of that is they can't be alone. They are so shattered from whatever has...
They're terrified to be alone, and to anybody watching, if you are being abused, you can get help. It doesn't get better, it only gets worse. That's been proven over and over again. If you're hit, you will be hit again. So there's plenty of resources out there that you can find. Fire departments, police departments, you know, 911, you're being abused, call and order a pizza, whatever. Just get somebody on the phone and find help.
Infatuation starts making your decisions. Infatuated love is blind. You only see what you want to see and believe. Mm-hmm. And this is a part of that too.
Yes.
You're just out of touch with reality. All your friends can say, he's no good for you, he's hurting you, and you cannot see it. You're absolutely blinded.
Right. And I want to say something right now too. It's not always him.
Oh, I'm not sorry. I'm sorry. It's from a woman's perspective,
yeah,
dear.
From a woman's perspective,
yeah,
but we also know
that
there are a lot of men that are being abused by the woman.
Absolutely.
But it's the same thing. They were abused by their mother.
Mm-hmm.
So love is associated with hurt and pain. They've hurt me. Now comes the good part. They love me. There's the dopamine rush.
There
I'm sorry. Let's make up. I'll never do it again. Blah blah blah.
And they just like that.
Yeah.
Back. Okay, eating addiction. Now, judging, Dan, by our overweight society, which, as you know, when we grew up, it wasn't so prevalent that we saw obese people or heavy people.
Right.
I mean, there was a few kids. You know, there always is. Life is life. Mm-hmm. But Dan, this has got to be complicated because you're not waiting in the dark alley for your cheeseburger Oreo dealer.
Right.
It's all around us. And commercials, Dan, I've been noticing since I've researched the show, they show these juicy hamburgers. We see lobster and the butter is dripping. Mm-hmm. This has got to get you going if you've got a problem.
And when was the last time you got a burger like that? It looks like that on TV.
Right.
Okay,
It's been a while. It's been a while. So tell us how this started. Okay, are they also overindulge? I mean, it starts out easy, like mm-hmm. everything. I think I'll have a Sunday tonight, and then how does this take off, Dan?
Okay, I like to look at it from the perspective, eating disorder is like technology addiction.
Okay.
Parents rewarding their children, you know, okay, if you just calm down, I'll get you the Sunday. Here's a cell phone to play with. Here's an iPod to play with. They use it to, I call it, sorry folks, bad parenting.
Quiet down. See, and we never had that, Dan.
No.
You know, I mean, you followed the rules. They did not come up with any bait to get you to follow it. You just did it. So I agree with that. There's something going on here that parents seem to want to please that child instead of have the, you know.
I don't think it's so much pleasing as taking an easy way out.
Okay, very good. That's better.
And if you
It's
see
true.
the TV commercials, you know, child, I'm not going to eat this. Well, add this food to it. And it's a reward system for misbehaving.
Wow.
You know, and we do that. We see it all the time. And with food addiction, people think, well, just don't eat that much. Well, I'm sorry. Let's look at our area. Okay, I told you just before the show that I've dropped, you know, was it almost 40 pounds. And I didn't have an eating disorder. I was bored because I was sitting in a van. I was driving a transportation van, so all I did was sit in a van 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, right next to the vending machine.
So it made it easy, so easy to start.
Yeah, 6 or 7 cans of Coke a day, and then you get your snacks and your chips. It's wintertime. We don't go out. We get bored. We sit at home. Have dinner from 6 o'clock until 11 o'clock. Pizza commercials, chili commercials. I mean, it's food.
I never noticed them until I was doing some research. Now, Dan, and then also, it's not just we want. It's again the behavior sets in, the act of opening an edible delight, the thinking about it. As gambling addiction is not really it's that hook, that thinking about it,
rush.
that
You're getting a
feeling
reward.
that item on your lips. As we watch that butter drip off the lobster, man, that could really get your juices going toward, I got to go.
Got a snack.
I'm now getting in the car.
Yep, got a
You
snack.
know, I'm going to go get it.
Well, we're showing our age, my dear. It's not getting in the car. You just call Grubhub.
Well, that's true.
You
See,
can
and I'm
have it
not
all
there
delivered
yet.
to you.
That's right. I'm not there yet, Dan, but you are so right.
It's so easy to indulge.
Yeah, wow. So its pleasurable acts can become what starts out. And do they all start that way, Dan? Is it pretty much pleasure?
It's
like
usually,
I'm unwinding. I deserve.
You know, it's my birthday. I got a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Well, there's a difference between sitting down at your birthday and having a piece of cake and eating the whole cake.
Right.
But
True.
it's that you go sit and watch TV, and like you said, that you're bombarded with food commercials. You know there's a half a cake still left.
So
you go munch.
So why not?
And then all of a sudden, the reward is like any addiction, the dopamine rush. You are rewarding yourself for something.
That's
and
right.
it's easy to find an excuse for a reward.
Absolutely. E-cigarettes, vaping. Now, I was under the impression when this all first started out that they were to help us decrease cigarette smoking. Okay, well, what happened?
Humans.
I mean, okay, so
People.
now again, did it have enough? Did it have enough whatever's in those to get you hooked, or is it that whole thing of holding it, the whole thing? What is it?
The whole thing was it became a fad.
A fad.
Because when you watch people that vape, and I've seen this in cars in front of me, I've seen it in bars, I've seen it in restaurants. You smoke a cigarette, you take a drag, you inhale, you exhale. I've watched vapors make clouds
Of
vapor around them. So you're really taking in a lot of that vapor. And anytime you take in any foreign substance into your lungs, there's going to be problems. Not for everybody.
No.
Some people have quit very successfully vaping. Got
Well,
off
some
tobacco.
people have quit cigarettes. Some people have quit alcohol.
Yeah.
But they're the exception to the
They're
rule.
the
We know
exceptions
that.
to the rules. But when vaping became popular with teenagers, like anytime that generation, the younger people will get involved, it's cool, it's hip. Okay, yeah, I've started to cough a little bit, but I'll get over it. Doing drugs, well, it just started with marijuana, and now I occasionally do something on a weekend.
Yes.
So it all progresses, and vaping has progressed to a deadly addiction.
Absolutely. Maybe worse. Would you say worse than cigarettes, or right up there with them, or it's different but just as destructive?
I can't make a medical diagnosis like
On
that.
that.
They're running equal now because they're still looking at what is it about vaping. It's better than this. Now they're vaping marijuana because it's legalized for medical, and they're starting to see complications there.
Yeah.
So it's
It seems to be hurting the lungs faster. Some of these substances are hurting them quicker. It seems like popcorn lung is some kind of awful.
Yeah, it's where parts of the air sacs and stuff, are destroyed. So when you look at vaping, you don't know what's in that chemical.
Right. Okay.
And when they start throwing that chemical in and mixing it with drugs, I mean, you can vape meth, you can vape anything. And that's where the danger comes in, especially for young kids. Well, I can't go into the store to buy it because I'm not 21 or I'm not 18, but I know somebody in the hood that is mixing this up, and I can go get the liquid from them. So,
Dan, we've covered these. I want you to now speak to us. We're running low on time, but I want you to speak to us about how we can support the people in our lives with addictions and compulsions. You know, many parents and siblings and people close to addicts and compulsive people have exhausted their bank accounts, they've mortgaged their homes, and that all for naught. So how could we more quickly come to they're in trouble, and the money is not only going to exacerbate it? What is your suggestion for the loved ones of people addicted and compulsive?
It's very difficult for the loved ones, no matter what the addiction is.
Yes.
Because you have to face the addiction with hard love. Okay? It's like when you look at drug addictions, thousands of dollars being spent in treatment. What people don't understand, it's whether it's smoking, vaping, gambling, alcohol, drugs. If the person does not want to stop, they're not going to stop.
So that's why those court-ordered rehabs, they never work.
No, because they'll go through the rehab, they'll come out clean, and go right back to using.
Yes.
There's been stories, especially like with drug addiction, where people go in to get clean, and they're clean for 3 or 4 months. Then they get home, hook up with their friends, do the same dosage that they did before they went into rehab, not realizing their body is not accustomed to that much drug anymore, and they're gone. They're gone. And it's the same thing with alcohol. Well, I haven't had anything to drink in over a year, so I'll just do a couple shots. All of a sudden, they're throwing up. You can't cope with it because the body's now healthy and you're repoisoning it.
Wow.
But if the person, and working in the drug and alcohol centers, I've heard men tell me, says, well, I don't have to worry. There's no drug out there that can kill me because they've got these drugs that'll save your life. Well, it depends on what drug you're doing, whether Narcan works or not.
Right.
Narcan works on opiate basis, does not work on meth.
Right.
So, and a lot of times, and I've had these guys say, why should I quit my drug when I know they can save my life? Well, it's about you wanting to save your life.
But that's that addictive thinking.
There it is,
just anything to come up with, I want to keep going.
Well, I quit smoking for 6 years, and I went out and had a cigarette one night with my friends and bought a pack the next day.
Yeah, you
that
cannot.
Quick.
You cannot.
No. When you get away from that addiction, you have to avoid that addiction. You got a gambling addiction? Well, don't go to the casinos. Don't play games on your cell phone or on your computer, because that's all part of the addiction setup.
Absolutely.
You get a reward, you get a dopamine rush.
Gets it going.
There you go.
Gets it going. Well, you've been listening to Dan Newman. Dan, thank you. We have had, every time he comes, you're a great guest.
Oh, thank you.
We've learned so much today, and you're so entertaining with it. So I hope that you learned as much as I have today. I'm signing off again. As always, be happy, and you keep smiling, and I'll see you soon.